You're watching CTOM TV. Knowledge is power.
So
Right.
go ahead, Alex. Here's a little bit about what is colon cancer.
Okay, yes. Well, first, let's start with what is the colon.
Okay.
The colon is an important part of our digestive system. It receives mostly digested food. The food's fairly well digested at that point. It's fairly liquid, and it absorbs a lot of the nutrients and water from the digested food. And it also passes it from an area called the cecum all the way down to the anus. So it's mostly digested at this point in time. It's just a little more liquid, and the colon helps extract the liquid and the nutrients from it. So it's a large organ. It's U-shaped, but it's actually derived from it's actually considered two different organs, so to speak. It's derived from two separate origins. The proximal or right-sided colon is derived from the midgut, and the left-sided or distal side closest to the anus is derived from the hindgut. Ding.
Oh, thank you. Hang on a second.
I'll make a ding sound every time I'd like you to change the page, Michelle. Thank you. Okay, so the terms proximal and distal is also referred to as right and left, and it's all relative to the distance from the stomach. So closest to the stomach is called the proximal, and then the furthest from the stomach, which is closest to the anus, is the distal. And so that's referred to as right and left, respectively. So the important thing is as I mentioned, the organs are very different. It's the same colon, but because it's derived from different cells, it's going to have a slightly different overall metabolic features when it comes to cancer. So a lot of people consider these two tumors, or they consider colon cancer as one disease. It actually needs to be considered two separate diseases based on the location of it. And so it's like real estate. Location is really the important thing. It's the same with colon cancer. So the two different locations have very different prognosis with standard care, and they need to be treated differently in order to optimize the treatment. So tumors that occur on the right side usually have a fairly, a worse prognosis and tend to not respond well to treatment or chemotherapy or other standard treatments compared to tumors on the left side. Ding. So there's a few different reasons. One of the main reasons is the food, when it passes through the proximal side, closest to the stomach, it's much more liquid. It hasn't had all the water removed yet. And therefore, you can have a tumor there, not really notice it until it's really big. That's one of the problems is people with right-sided colon cancers tend to get diagnosed at a much later stage than people with left-sided colon cancers. And that's because the food is much more liquid in the proximal than it is in the distal. And therefore, a blockage in the proximal can kind of go unnoticed until it's really large, whereas a blockage in the distal near the anus, where the food is much more, or the food product is much more dried up, causes a lot more discomfort, and you can notice it a lot sooner. And then additionally, there's a type of bacteria that lives in the proximal, but not in the distal. It's called Fusobacterium nucleatum, or F. nucleatum. And this bacteria is very interesting. It's a group of bacteria that it can actually break down certain chemotherapy drugs that are used in treatment of colon cancers.
So that's not good.
No.
No. All right. So those are two bad things about the right, or the proximal.
Yes.
And why the prognosis is worse with standard care.
Yeah, it's actually more complicated than that. The genetics are completely different. The tumors look different under a microscope. So there's a bunch of different factors, but these are the two main reasons.
Thank you for watching CTOM TV. Subscribe below and stay informed.